Welcome to another episode. I am Dee, and this is the Sussex set. And I'm sitting here looking at a picture of Meghan, giving very much rich lady vibes, giving very much, I am, in fact, a celebrity. But I'm also a Cali girl and a hippie. You know, you can't quite afford my budget, but I'm going to make you believe you can. Like, she looks great. But I love that she's just back to, like, just living her life, you know, not afraid. I don't ever get the vibes that Meghan is afraid of being photographed. It's that don't intrude on my privacy, which is fair for anybody. But she looks great. Like, I love the brown hat. I feel like that's not the first time we've seen her wear that. But she's just out doing some shopping in Montecito with her Montecito jumpsuit, which is, as you know, sold out already. But no, I love it for him. I love it for him. And given that everybody is basically back outside and her kids are not, you know, teeny tiny anymore, I would expect to see more of that. I mean, she's going to live her life. They're going to live their life. So that's just good to see. It's a new era, and I love it for them. Speaking of Meghan, she continuously raises the bar for us all. Back with another episode this week or last week, she had Paris Hilton on. And I swear every single episode, I don't want to say it outdoes the last, but it's special in its own way. And I noticed after about 2 or 3 episodes, she stopped announcing who's coming on or who the next episode will be. And I kind of like that. And specifically because when you hear who's on the show, you have like a set of ideas based on what you know about the person. But by the end of the episode, a lot of those ideas are probably completely done away with or reinforced, depending on how much you know about the person. But I love that. And I wouldn't have predicted Paris Hilton at all. So on the Paris Hilton episode, they were talking about the label of bimbo and everything that goes into that. I believe the episode was called Breaking Down the Bimbo. And you know that Meghan recorded a lot of the episodes in the same day, or I feel like she recorded all episodes within a very small time frame. But you can hear as they release each episode how much more comfortable she is as the interviewer. In the first couple of episodes, it was good. It was great. But I think she is really settling in by this point. And I really loved hearing her ask Paris about her story and just, you know, asking follow-up questions based on what Paris was saying. And so much about Paris, I was just completely unaware. I mean, I guess she's done a documentary recently. I hadn't watched it. I just have so little time to do almost anything. But it definitely makes me curious. But I had no idea she went through some of those things as a child. And even just hearing her talk about just her life in general, where she is now, she gives you such different vibes from what has been crafted about her, in part with her cooperation, because she went into, you know, how Paris Hilton, the character, is so different from Paris Hilton, the person. But in the beginning of the episode, Meghan made a reference to her days as a deal or no deal girl. And it's so funny because every time Meghan talks about herself, every time she gives you a story to connect herself as the interviewer to the interviewee as well as the topic, you already know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. I feel like Meghan knows what's going to happen. But it's good that she does it anyway, because it's important, right, to the episode itself. But in the beginning, she talks about her time as a deal or no deal girl, and she led with how it was a time where she had health insurance, she was in the union, it was an actual job, and it led to her being able to do other things, but that she was able to work in the industry, even though she had another degree in international studies and had used that as well. But I knew when she talked about how after a while she felt icky from being objectified. And listen, it is what it is. That's not going to be everybody's experience, but she has the right to talk about her own experience. But I knew when she said that folks were going to come for her. Here they come. Here they come. Because it's just too delicious for a hater to leave alone, right? But see, here's the thing that is always so strange to me. There are people who are clear Meghan haters. They don't like Meghan. They're never going to like Meghan. They look for any and everything to criticize her on. And then there are those who, like Claudia Jordan, for example, who say they're not haters. In fact, that they support Meghan, right? And I'm not saying that, this is an indoctrination that you got to be Sussex Squad deep down in your soul. But we'll say, but she says, I will defend Meghan, or I have defended Meghan so hard in the past, but then will step forward and allow herself to be used as something to hit Meghan over the head with just because her experience differed from Meghan. That's very strange to me. It's always those people who are in the middle who say that I really love Meghan. I love everything she's doing. But then you don't hesitate to put yourself in a position to be a critic of her telling her own experience. That's strange to me. So I knew when Claudia posted that on her Instagram, all the tabloids were going to pick it up. But the thing is, she learned a valuable lesson, which is that when people criticize you over Meghan, they're not just coming at you, calling you names. They're giving you all kinds of receipts. And ultimately, she deleted the actual post, not the stories. But when she did that, I knew other people were going to come out who had also been Deal or No Deal girls. And so far, it's been 3 or 4 of them trying to criticize Meghan. How can you criticize someone on their own experience? But that, to me, when it's all said and done, it demonstrates the pure power that Meghan has. Because if you really think about this, there's no other podcast that people are waiting on week after week the way they're waiting on this podcast. Not because they're interested in the podcast or the subject matter, but because they're interested in the person and what they have to say, for better or for worse. There are industries that sit on Tuesday morning waiting for the podcast to drop just so they can write articles about it. That is insane. But not only that, but then you had people like Whoopi Goldberg talking about it. Again, for better or for worse, that doesn't, to me, I didn't even hear what Whoopi said. I know it was something to the fact that, maybe, what do you expect or something? I don't know. I really didn't. I did not listen to what Whoopi said. I just know that she criticized Meghan on that. But even with that, you're still talking about her. She's still being talked about. There was that segment on CNN where the women journalists sat around and talked about how they felt objectified as well in their profession, even though they bring all of this expertise with them to the table that has nothing to do with their looks. Who else has a podcast that causes people everywhere, especially professional women everywhere, to engage in the way that they have done for the past 5 or 6 weeks? Nobody. So whether you're criticizing her or agreeing with her, you're just exposing her to more people, which ultimately, I think that's a good thing. But it's still kind of lame to be a critic over someone telling their own story. And that's the one thing that also bothers me, in the sense that I think the fact that people have bullied Meghan and just beat up on her in terms of the tabloids specifically, I think it makes people comfortable with criticizing her when they really shouldn't be. because they're so used to hearing other people criticize her without merit. Without merit. And so if you don't know, Claudia Jordan, after she was a Deal or No Deal girl, I really don't know what she did, but I know she's a lawyer. But you may know her from being on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. She was only on there for one season. I found her to be the most boring person on the show, in the show's history. And that's not because she criticized Meghan. I promise you that. She just was not a good fit. When the girls would read her up and down, she would have no good comebacks. And that's surprising because she was a lawyer. So that's probably why she was disappointing to me.
Claudia, you want to be the it girl, but you ain't got it. You got an I, but you are definitely missing the T, boo. Proceed with caution.
But she was only on there for one season. I think she hosts a show with some other people. I think maybe Vivica Fox and Lisa Ray, sort of like a version of The Real or The View or something like that, where they talk about kind of like hood topics, seems like. But I don't know the name of the show. But yeah, so she basically, nobody was checking for you, Claudia. No, wasn't nobody looking for you, girl. So when she posted all of that, and it was this whole rambling thing, it was just like, girl, first of all, I don't think anybody is actually checking for you or looking for your opinion. But like, secondly, we don't care. We do not care. Like, we care enough to let you know that you're wrong. But girl, nobody cares. Like, people don't care. Like, girl, do you know how long ago that was? And then gonna bring Howie Mandel into it. He was the host of the show. She didn't say nothing about Howie, girl. So now you're just being messy, actually. So that's really the main reason why I didn't quite appreciate what she was saying, because she didn't have any valid points. And then she just started talking about, all of the opportunities that Deal or No Deal created for her. And that's great. But like, girl, Meghan said that too. Meghan praised the show before she talked about how she felt eventually by just being a briefcase girl. And that's Meghan's experience. But, I at some point, again, I just accepted that archetypes would just be the vehicle for people to bully Meghan every week. And I'm sure Meghan accepted that before she even probably recorded the first episode, because she knows how people are. And when you're Meghan and when you're that girl, with every episode you release, tongues are wagging. When you're that girl, sadly, your name pays the mortgage for your haters. When you're that girl, irrelevant colleagues, they come for you because they're clout chasing, because your name can get their name in the headlines, and their names won't be in the headlines otherwise. So I guess we just have to accept that that's going to happen every week. But on the episode itself, yeah, I love that she gave Paris a chance to talk about her experience and her background. And, Paris has had some shady moments in the past. She's freely said the N-word as a young lady, and also made some anti-LGBT remarks and comments and things like that. But, she was young. She was super young. And while it is offensive, girl, I'm willing to give early 20 teens, whatever, the benefit of the doubt. Truly. And, because everybody makes mistakes, and I think young people have the right to be dumb as fuck. That's just their rite of passage. But if you're in your 20s and 30s and late 20s, I should say, and 30s, still doing that same type of shit, then we just have to throw you away. Like Kanye, you have to learn. It's kind of like when people go digging up old tweets from folks like Shawn Mendes and Lil Nas X and just, okay, well, you're a teenager, forgiven. But don't do that shit again. It's just like learn and grow, as that's your responsibility. So, and then and you notice at the end of the episode, Meghan said, this is not some defense of Paris Hilton. So Meghan knew. And that to me demonstrates that she has some big balls, just because it's like she still invited her on the show, because we can all still take someone else's experience and pull back the layers. And that's what's so important about archetypes, is that, especially as women, we're already like harshly judged in the world, but then we also harshly judge each other. And I think archetypes encourages all of us to give one another grace and to listen as well as to speak on our own experiences. So I think, it's such a great podcast, and I look forward to like what the next seasons bring. Just because so many more people are understanding the harmful impacts that stereotypes and archetypes have on not just ourselves, but also our neighbors. So we're more similar than we are different. And I think that podcast does a really good job of demonstrating that. So looking forward to the next episode. Again, I'm really waiting on the Issa Rae episode and the Z-Way episode. Can't wait for those two. So I have a feeling she's going to say those for last, though. But yeah. That's that. Make sure to tune into Archetypes every Tuesday exclusively on Spotify. And then, of course, there's more to be said about the fact that The Crown is coming back to Netflix November 9th. Every season has been released in November. November 9th of this year, girl. Get your Netflix subscriptions paid. Get them going. If you somehow deleted your I probably will never delete Netflix, at least for a while, because of shows like The Crown. But yeah, so apparently Netflix has gained like 2.4 million subscribers in the last quarter, which is great because, weren't the girls getting ready to sign her death certificates? Anyway, The Crown comes back in November. And apparently Dame Judi Dench has written an open letter and said, Netflix, y'all need to let everybody know that this is fiction on every episode. Y'all need to let the world know, especially the girls overseas. Girl, don't you know Netflix is overseas? Like the clownery. But yeah, she wrote an open letter, the Dame, right? So she's still working off her reward from the Queen, I guess. And by the way, I didn't plan on talking about The Crown this much. I feel like I've talked about The Crown in in the last 3 episodes. I do love the show. Don't get me wrong, but the only reason I'm talking about The Crown so much, though, is because the royal family keeps making such a fuss. And so what they're going to do is they're going to have people watching the series that never even watched any of the series. But they're going to binge watch now so that they're all caught up by the time season 5 rolls around. But Judi Dench wrote a letter that was almost as if Charles wrote it himself, saying that, quote, what The Crown is doing this season is cruelly unjust to the individuals and damaging the institution they represent. Huh? Now, if you remember, and if I can remind you, the royal family, royalists, English folks, everybody loved The Crown until these later seasons. Everybody loved it until season 4. Well, who was introduced in season 4? That's right, Princess Diana. Suddenly everybody's upset. You weren't mad when, Winston Churchill was a prime minister, and bombings and all of that were happening in the show, right? Because you said right, because that's historical dramatizations. Things actually happen, but we were told to carry on, keep calm, and carry on. And that's what we did. We loved it. English pride. But then it's still the same royal family at the center of it. The Queen, right? The person who wears the crown is at the center. And everyone that's been cast as the Queen has been phenomenal. But you know who my favorite is. And again, let me just say, Olivia Colman, did her thing in both seasons. I wish she could play the latter seasons, but, I get it. They changed the characters out. Well, listen, the queen got old. And the younger folks in the royal family, they came up and they started living their lives. I mean, why would they continue on with the season and not talk about the things that actually happened? So I say all of that to say you can't say, oh, we love this show when it's just depicting things that are not so personal to you, but yet when it's your turn, you're upset. Like one of the saddest storylines, but also based in fact, that The Crown shows is the one of Margaret. Margaret couldn't marry the love of her life. She couldn't marry the love of her life, and her queen, her sister, was the one who prevented her from doing so. It's true. It is actual fact that was the case. The dialogue we know is fiction, but see what the royal family is trying to do now, particularly Charles, because see, the heat is on. Listen, Charles wants it both ways. He wants to look y'all in y'all face and say, the queen is not the queen consort. She should be called Queen Camilla. But he doesn't want you to be reminded that she started off as his mistress, right? And their kid's mother, his kid's mother, was the one that everybody loved the most in the royal family. When she died, you compare her funeral to the queen's funeral, even the queen's funeral, the air was just totally different. The response from the people, totally different. Y'all made that lady's life a living hell. You don't want the people to be reminded of that. But it's okay for the folks to see how, the monarchy made Margaret's life a living hell. Which, no sympathy for her because, she is also a product. But still, that has to suck. But now when it's about you and your horse, Tony, and his pony, it's a problem. Now you want Netflix to put all these disclosures on every episode. They're not doing that. They weren't doing it before. Why would they do it now? Listen, we're still telling the same story about the same family. And now you're wearing the crown. And Charles is so childish and churlish and petty that he thinks that now that he's king, he can really have some influence. Netflix is not putting any disclosures anywhere. They may, for legal reasons, say something about the Panorama interview, the way that the HBO documentary did at the very end of The Princess, but they don't have to. But they will do that probably just as a due diligence type of thing. But listen, things happen the way they happen. And so while, he's sending out his flunkies to say, for example, I think Dickie Arbiter posted something that said, see, the Queen and Philip never hugged outside of Windsor Castle when it was on fire. This was some other time. Okay, that might be so, but we already told you it was a dramatization. But did the castle catch on fire? Yes, it did. So it's like stupid shit like that. What are you going to do when they play the conversation of Charles talking about, God forbid he comes back as a tampon in Camilla's snatch? What you going to do about that? You going to say it's fiction? I mean, listen, because the tabloids, they suck. And those were ill-gotten gains from the tabloids. That being said, it was you and your mistress, your at the time mistress, having a dirty conversation. You can't say it's fiction because it's fact, So that's going to be really fun. Like I remember last season, because Diana Hive is here. Like they really came out and it's also a younger generation of folks. It was the royal family turning off their comments on Twitter and on Instagram. They turned it off. It was Clearance House. I guess this time it'll be the royal family Instagram and Twitter being turned off. But Because listen, this season is going to be tumultuous. It's going to be tumultuous. I'm looking forward to it. I know it's going to make me sad. And from what I can see, season 6, which is what they're filming now, the final season, Diana is still alive. But they did show her in the tan suit that she wore in Paris in the final days of her life. So it makes me think that like the finality, like the end of Diana's life is going to be depicted in season 6. But really, when you think about it, the end of Diana's life, in a way, was also the end of the modern monarchy, you know, as it could have been, right? Meghan gave it a fighting chance, but you see what they did to her and to Diana's son. So, yeah, it's so interesting just to see the closer that it gets to November 9th, just how much they're kicking and screaming. So make sure y'all tune in. If for nothing else, just because they don't want you to watch. See, because now they're bringing the Queen into it, talking about, well, we just buried the Queen, and for the sake of the family and the British public who is still in mourning, let's not do this. And why not? The Queen knew we were filming. She knew we was doing this show before she died. And y'all can't be grieving too much. The way they was smiling the night before her funeral like a pack of hyenas, girl. But, you know, they are throwing everything at the wall. And I don't know what makes them think that Netflix is going to just completely change it up just because they asked them to, or they're requesting all of these disclosures and disclaimers and all of that. Girl, who are you? This is a different time. Maybe if this was 100 years ago, perhaps, maybe. But you don't have the pull that you think you do. And I think the monarchy's real fear is that the British public, who loves the show, by the way, will be reminded of the worst parts about them as a royal family, that they are flawed humans too, but they're just flawed humans who don't pay taxes, right? Because we got to get into the key differences here. Because Charles inherited how many hundreds of millions of dollars that he doesn't have to pay an inheritance tax on? Meanwhile, y'all got to pay something like 40%? Crazy, right? I know. But like, they're so afraid of being seen as just regular human beings, flawed human beings who are no better than the rest of society. And in fact, in some ways, they are worse. And see, the crown demonstrates that in some ways. See, because in reality, the worst parts about members of the royal family are shielded from the public. And they're never held accountable for their misdeeds. But in a show like The Crown, we get to imagine what some of those conversations are, even though we know they're fiction, the conversations themselves, but the events that they're based on are not. I'm sorry you hate to be reminded of your past, but maybe you should have lived a different life. Maybe you should have lived a different type of life. Maybe you should have treated your kid's mother better. You know? Because now characterizations and dramatizations of some of their most embarrassing and most inhumane misdeeds are about to play out in front of not just British society, but an already shaky Commonwealth and the rest of the world. And we're in a time when Diana's son, her favorite son, and her daughter-in-law have openly talked about how they were at the receiving end of some of the most harsh and inhumane treatment by the same people in this institution. So not only do we have a gigantic reminder of what they did to Princess Diana, folks are now in tandem drawing parallels to what they've done to Diana's son and his black wife. This is what they're also afraid of. And it's too late because we already see it. But the biggest tragedy is that no time in between Diana's life and Prince Harry's marriage and the life he lives after that did Charles decide to become a better person. He didn't become a better father. He became a worse father. And then also, Will won't really play into it, but he basically became like the institution in the same way that Margaret did. Because Will, I guess maybe that's a survival mechanism. He's totally anti-Harry and anti-Meghan. He's angry at everything they do. He's also in his mind anyway, in competition with Harry and Meghan, even over here in the States. Did you forget that, we are no longer a part of your monarchy? So you have no reason to be coming over here, but yet here you are bringing your ball and chain. It's the parallels that you don't want us to see are the ones we're going to look for first. And it's not going to make you guys look any better, the monarchy, by protesting, the debut of the 5th season of this show. And so I guess if I was Charles, I'd be scared and calling my flunkies too, because people are going to have the receipts to match every event that they see in this season, just because you are so adamant about letting the world know that it's fiction. We know it's fiction, fool. What an idiot. Duh, we know. But we also know that it's based on real events. And unfortunately for you, the events of this season took place in the 90s. And the receipts, especially the ones in video, will be extremely easy to locate. Well, I guess it's time to turn off the comments again, because what a time it will be. I am so looking forward to it. I don't think November 9th can get here quick enough. Also, just to pivot here, Meghan did an interview for Variety. I love those. I love when she does those pieces because we always get such beautiful images out of those. And then in this one, there was also a video, a snippet of part of the interview, which I love. She just looks radiant, man. I swear. If I were insecure, racist, and a hater, I guess I'd be jealous too. She looks phenomenal. She looks great. I mean, you shouldn't be jealous, but you know how it is. You know how Meghan are. I really shouldn't even bother them up, but she looks amazing, and I'm sure it drives folks crazy. I believe for the interview, they met at San Ysidro Ranch, and I've heard of that, but maybe I'll do a little bit more Googling on what goes on there. But people seem to be pretty surprised to see Meghan. And and it apparently they did the bulk of this before the funeral, and I think they added in a couple of questions about just her relationship with the Queen and all of that. I did notice that between this interview and the one for The Cut, because again, anything and everything Meghan does, people are going to talk about it, make big deals about it. She was a little bit more open in The Cut interview, or The Cut piece. I guess she was interviewed, but it just wasn't published in an interview style like this one. And in this one, she seemed a little bit more guarded with her responses. I felt like the questions were more direct, but Meghan, she answered the questions, but she couched her answers in sort of an overall thought on what the ultimate answer was. But there were a couple of questions that she kind of, avoided, and which I totally get that. Because you can't really be as straight shooting with some of those types of questions, especially where they're involving Salt Island and the allegedly racist royals. So y'all already know what I think about them folks. But anyway, I still loved it. I loved that archetypes was really at the center of the whole piece. It is in part in promotion of archetypes, and the fact that it's highly successful, because we got to put the facts out there first. A highly successful podcast. I loved her singing Octonauts, or was that I don't even know if it was Octonauts, but we knew that Archie loved Octonauts because I think Harry talked about it. But the storybots. That's what it was.
And I've become that mom where I'm like sitting around with friends and I start singing like, Tyrannosaurus, that's the chorus, Tyrannosaurus. I was like, what am I singing? Oh my gosh, I'm singing Storybot.
That was really cute, her singing that. Just being a relatable mom, you know. But a couple of the key takeaways, Meghan is not going to be acting again. Not surprised by that at all, but she seems pretty final on that, which I love because, to be honest, a lot of actors ultimately do want to transition into being producers or directors or some other more influential role within the industry, but still giving you entertainment. And we know that Harry and Meghan want to bring very meaningful entertainment to folks. And she talked about it being Harry's new to the industry, whereas she has a little bit, obviously, more expertise there and knows how things work in general. But I thought it was interesting, the question about the question and answer, actually, about the docuseries. So she finally acknowledged it. I feel like there was conversation in the cut piece, but to me it wasn't super clear. But there's a clear acknowledgement here, and maybe I missed it if it was already previously spoken about. But Liz Garbus, he asked, what can we expect from Liz Garbus's docuseries on you and your husband? And she said that it's nice to trust somebody else with your story. It may not be the way that you tell it, but it's also someone whose work you admire and, you know, you trust them with your story. Again, people tried to make more out of that than what it was. But I actually look forward to that. I keep hearing people say December or floating December around. Also for the memoir, I don't know. We'll see. For me, I feel like I'm just at the point where whatever comes, whatever they share, whatever they produce, whatever drops, it will drop when it drops. Like, I'm not losing any sleep over what they do and what they don't do. I just enjoy it when they do put whatever they've been working on out. I'm already just trying to keep up with everything that they've been doing, especially in the past couple of weeks. Just because, you know, girls, we've been eating, and it felt like we were never going to eat again. You know, the way things just came to a grinding halt when the Queen died. But here we are, just barely keeping up. And then there's still so many more things that they got going on to end the year with. We know that the RFK award is coming up in the beginning of December, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But they've been giving us so much more content, so it's just hard keeping up with that. So whatever they decide to put out, whenever they put it out, I'll enjoy it when they do. And of course, we have the ongoing archetypes dropping every week. So another takeaway is, for me at least, is that Meghan is so far deep in her business bag. Like, she's approaching everything that they do, at least in terms of production, whether audio, film, as a business. Now, I know that's not breaking news, but it's just really great to hear her talking about what their vision is for Archewell and some of the projects that they may have going on. And when she says, well, one thing we're not going to do is a horror film, that lets me know that they're going to do films in general. And again, not necessarily breaking news, but that to me implies that they're working on other things. So we don't know, but I just love their business sense when it comes to this foundation that they've created, because it's more than just giving back in terms of money, donations. They build a playground in Uvalde. It's more than just that, although that's, I think, at the heart of what they do. But they really do want to inspire people, especially young people, with the projects that they put out. And so I think for Meghan, while she might love acting, I don't see how she would have time, and again, it's far more impactful to be able to bring the story than to just be in it. So, they're parents, so time is short. But I just love seeing this side of her because she really is a bad bee. You know what I mean? She's a boss lady and she's really in that bag. And so, I mean, hate on her all you like. You're not stopping this train from rolling. You know what I mean? That's what she's on now. And you can clearly see it. She was asked about the monarchy process and how that institution might be similar to, the institution of, the entertainment industry. And can I just say, I love that question because the monarchy, you know what? It is a business. It's a business. It's not a family. And she responded in kind. It's a business, but ultimately what she says, you got to find your North Star within any institution. She's so done with them people. And I'm glad that she found her North Star and it led her out of the institution because no person who is so vibrant and full of life should be trapped within that. But yeah, she said, a lot of industries are different, but every business has a bottom line. And I guess that bottom line needs to be held. Her words were, I suppose. But yeah, she found her way right out. And it's been for the good. It's been for the best. All to the good. Because this business model right here, not for me. So while I won't be returning to acting, I also won't be returning to that shit. Good for you, Meghan, because their bottom line was in hell. And that's just what it is. So if you haven't read the Variety piece, I'll link it in the description below or wherever you see the description, wherever you're listening. I'll link that. And then, of course, I did want to speak about the upcoming award that Harry and Meghan will be receiving from the RFK Foundation, Robert F. Kennedy, the brother of former President John F. Kennedy. So back in October, well, we're still in October, but in the middle part of October, R.F. Kennedy Human Rights announced that Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan have been named as this year's Ripple of Hope Award laureates in recognition of their work on racial justice, mental health, and other social impact initiatives through their Archwell Foundation. Harry and Meghan will be honored alongside fellow laureates Frank Baker, co-founder and managing partner of Sirius. Sorry, I'm reading. Brian Moynihan, who is the board and chief executive officer of Bank of America, and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. So big names. Past laureates include so many presidents, U.S. presidents, including Obama and Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, I believe, as well. Previous laureates include Stacey Abrams, John Lewis, Colin Kaepernick, Robert De Niro, Anthony Fauci, Desmond Tutu, and really the list just goes on and on. Joe Biden. What great company to be in, Look at the work that Harry and Meghan have done just as two highly influential people who happen to be married to one another, right? They've captured the world's imagination with their story. But just in the last couple of years since leaving the royal family, because they're being honored for what they've done after the royals, not during their time in the royal family. When you look at what they've done in just a few short years, it's incredible. Much of it was done during the pandemic. But it's really great to see a family like the Kennedys recognizing that. Because while Will and Kate are trying to come over here to America to, put their tentacles in Boston, which, the Kennedys are from Massachusetts. I mean, I'm pretty sure that was deliberately chosen for them to do the whole Earthshot Prize in Boston. The Kennedys are recognizing the Sussexes. You know what I mean? Like, these are people who are doing real work. Real work. And if you know anything about the Kennedys, they are a family of public service. From Eunice Kennedy, Shriver, to, she started the Special Olympics, who is Maria Shriver's mom. I mean, just a family rooted completely in public service, like true service. And they are who America considers our royals. If there have to be royals, which we don't even have. But speaking of The Crown, one of probably the best episodes, if you haven't watched it, is the one that has Jacqueline Kennedy and JFK in England. And then Jackie comes back because I guess she and the Queen butt heads. I don't know if that was actually true, but it was a great episode. But yeah, while the Cambridges are trying to cozy up near the Kennedys are recognizing Harry and Meghan. And also, Robert F. Kennedy's son, RFK Jr., he's been an environmentalist since I can remember, like for my whole life. I don't see him falling over himself to get in with Earthshot Prize. It's because Earthshot Prize is just for show. It's this thing that he attaches himself to just because he didn't have a thing of his own while Harry had the Invictus Games. But now he can use this as a vehicle to go around the world to somehow demonstrate his own importance, which is self-importance, really. Saying, look at me, I'm giving away money to people who are doing things, which is great. Yeah, do give away money, but like $50 million overall over 10 years? Girl, you ain't doing nothing. And the thing is, they know they're not doing anything with it. But what it does is it gets them to America. It gets them to Boston. It gets them possibly maybe in the headlines. And that's going to be interesting because do you also remember when they announced that they will be doing the Earthshot Prize in Boston, which I'm not going to give it any of my time when it comes around, unless something crazy happens. And you may say, well, you're giving it your time now? Only because I'm speaking about Harry and Meghan doing their thing over here in America, right? Because remember, they were told to get out of my Caucasian house, get out of the monarchy. They went to America. They're doing their thing. So why are you over here in their fucking face? So that's where it comes into play right now or right today. But like they announced they were doing the Earthshot Prize in Boston. And then a little bit later, they announced that the month before, which happened to be when the Queen died, so it didn't actually happen, they were going to be in New York for the UN General Assembly. Why? Because Harry had made a speech at the UN. Why, girl? Why were you going to come over here for that? You know what I mean? And apparently, Meghan was also going to be in New York. They were going to be in New York. Meghan was going to be on Jimmy Fallon's show. And she was also going to be doing the UN General Assembly. Meghan is no stranger to the UN. And Harry did his thing. So, of course, William has decided, well, I have to do that too. Girl, no, you don't. Your country got bigger problems right now. Do y'all even know who y'all's prime minister is? No, you don't. And probably the funniest thing I've seen, just a slight tangent. Somebody said, well, who's going to play Liz Truss in the last 10 minutes of The Crown? Girl, y'all got so many issues. Y'all don't even know what's going on in y'all country right now. But you trying to play over here. Why? The girlies don't even want you over here. And William and Kate's flunkies are talking about how their popularity is soaring in the U.S. Again, people don't even know who they are. They only know who they are in relation to Harry and Meghan. So when, I guess that's the beginning of December, when that rolls around, you better believe every news outlet in America will be talking about Harry and Meghan's award because it'll be a gala. So they get to play dress up and look great doing it, as they always do. The most recent gala that we saw was at the Intrepid. That was also in New York. And every news outlet across the globe that has any interest in Meghan, especially Meghan, but Meghan and Harry, they're going to be showing that. And, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, because I don't believe that it's going to be that way for Will and Kate. I really just don't. So Harry and Meghan's event is going to be on December 6th, I believe. And by the way, they were notified way back in March that they would be the recipients of the Ripple of Hope Award. And a couple of days later in Boston, they're going to be doing the whole Earthshot thing, the others. Listen, the entire time Meghan was in England, the royal family, especially Will, was super anti-American toward her, making all kind of comments. So the fact that you're in America trying to get this press attention, because, you know, the circle jerking in the UK only gets you so far. It's not serious. Like, it can't be serious. It's laughable at this point. Well done to Harry and Meghan for continuing to raise the bar. And I love that American institutions, entities, and foundations will continue to recognize them for the work that they do. It's all just so lovely. You know, I also just thought about something. The fact that it's days apart and in the same region as the other royals doing whatever they think they're doing, that means that perhaps maybe royal reporters will be trying to weasel their way into the Ripple of Hope thing. I really hate that. Like, I hate it. I hate that the most. Like, I'm pretty sure it's not going to ruin anything, but it's just so cringe, really, because you know it's not just enough for them to go to Boston to cover Will and Kate, because Will and Kate don't move the needle. That's just ultimately what it's going to boil down to. They don't move the needle. And again, Harry and Meghan are going to be a tough act to follow. They don't move the needle. But the ones who need their mortgages paid, you better believe that when they get to Boston, they're coming from New York, not from Salt Island. Ew, I hate it. But you know what? That never stopped Harry and Meghan from doing what they have to do to be happy in this life, in this country. And so we love that for them. And so with that, that is pretty much all I have for today. Please don't forget to listen to Archwell for clear skin. She drops every Tuesday. Actually, not Archwell. Sorry. Archetypes on Spotify. Listen to her. She drops on Tuesdays, every Tuesday morning. And yeah, we'll discuss on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, you can find me at Megan Mood, as well as on Instagram, TikTok, and all the other places, and YouTube and Patreon. So thanks as always for tuning in, and keep shining your light. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And so until next time, peace.
I'm a bad bitch. You can't kill me.